Hi, mystery readers. I'm Alexandra Amor. This is It's a Mystery podcast, and I'm here today with Wendy H Jones. Hi, Wendy.
Hi,
How are you doing today?
I'm absolutely fabulous. We've
Great.
got sun in Scotland, so that's always a bonus.
Yeah, that is a bonus. Well, you know what? I was reading up about you before the show, and I went to a site about Dundee, which we'll talk about, where you live, and it said
Yeah,
that it gets the most hours of sunlight of any city in Scotland.
it does, yes.
So, you
I
have
think
that
help the
benefit.
rest of Scotland is all I can say.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, exactly. Goodness me. Okay, well, let me give you a little, give our listeners a bit of a introduction to you. After
Yeah,
a career in both the Royal Navy and the Army, Wendy H. Jones retired as a major, a rank she holds to this day. After working in academia, she gave it all up and turned to a life of crime. She's the author of the D.I. Shona McKenzie Mysteries, the fifth book of which, Killer's Crew, won the Books Go Social Book of the Year Award 2017. Her first young adult book, The Dagger's Curse, is shortlisted for the Women Alive Reader's Choice Award. Wendy lives in Dundee, Scotland, as we mentioned, and that's where her books are set. She's also an international public speaker and the founder of the Crime at the Castle Book Festival. So let's start, Wendy, by talking about D.I. Shona McKenzie. Tell us a bit about her and why she's come back to Dundee.
well, in the first book, she's recently come back to Dundee because she was living in Oxford. She's originally from Dundee, but left when she was two because her father took a job at Oxford University. He was a professor, and she has come back because her now ex-husband wanted to move back to Dundee, said it would be a good career move for her. So she took up a promotion, and then her husband walked out the door and left her to it. He just wanted to move back so that the police would pay for the move, and he moved in with another woman.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So at the beginning of the first book, she's got a bit of a down on men, but don't worry, it doesn't last for long.
Oh, that's good. Good. And then I read in the description for the first book that she's sort of trying to prove herself. Would you say that's true?
Well, it is because even though she's from Dundee, she has a she's been brought up in Oxford, so she has an English accent. Which I'm not getting at the English here, but if you've got an English accent in Scotland, people look at you a bit funny.
Mm.
And they don't take kindly to somebody from England telling them what to do. And of course, she's the boss. She's come in and she's taken over this disparate team of in what was then Tayside Police. But unfortunately, the police went and changed everything, and it became Police Scotland, just
Mm.
to confuse crime writers.
That's right.
So she's trying to prove that she's got what it takes, really, to be in charge of the team and be a good police officer in Scotland. Unfortunately, the team don't play well together. At least a couple of them spend their entire time fighting, and in some cases, physically fighting,
Mm.
because they can't get on together. So she's trying to knock their heads together as well as solve a case.
Right. And so tell us a little bit about her personality. I mean, she must be quite a determined individual, it sounds like.
Oh, she is. She's very feisty. She doesn't suffer fools gladly. And to start with, she comes across as being quite cross, really, with everybody and really quite hard. But she's not. She's got a soft heart, but she just has to come in all guns blazing and take charge of this situation and prove that she's actually the boss and that she can tell people what to do and get the job done.
Right. And I was wondering, I wanted to ask if your career in the military had influenced or does influence the way that you write about Shona, because I imagine that being a woman in a hierarchical, more male-oriented industry like that, is a bit of a challenge. And so I suspect that Shona might, just be a little bit influenced about your experience in the Army and the Navy.
I'm sure she is because I know what a hierarchical society is like. Although
Hmm.
I have to point out, I was actually a nurse in the army, so there was a lot of women to start with,
Oh, okay.
not quite many men. But a lot of the doctors were men, but rank and things came into it. But you obviously have to respect rank, and that comes through very clearly in the book and the way that Shona reacts to people. Although her boss is a bit of a nightmare. So although she's saying, yes, sir, no, sir, three bags full, sir, of course, sir, I'll sort that out, sir, She spends her entire time trying to think of ways to bump him off because he's really getting on her nerves and getting in the way.
Right. Yeah. And so what made you decide to set the books in Dundee?
Well, I'm from Dundee originally, and although I've been all over the world, I moved back here, and there's not that many crime books set in Dundee, so it was an ideal situation. Also, Dundee is quite a small city. Mm-hmm. So because it's so small, everybody knows everybody. It's hard to keep a secret, but it's not hard to keep a secret either.
Oh, okay. So there's a bit of a paradox there.
Yeah. I said in one book, if you sneeze in Bolumby, which is one end of Dundee, they'll know all about it in, Ardler, which is another end of Dundee, before you've had time to sneeze.
Right. And I imagine, like, I read on the web that it's sort of 142,000 people. That's what
Yes.
Yeah. And I mean, as you say, that's not a very big place. People would know each other. And so there must be particular circumstances that arise in a city that size.
There is, because a serial killer in Dundee, they'd be hard pushed to kill as much people as I've killed in my books because there'd be nobody left.
Right.
Really. But people do keep secrets as well. People don't easily give out information on their neighbours or people in their same area because there are disparate areas of Dundee and people will look out for each other. Mm-hmm. In those areas. They're very small communities. So it works both ways. People protect each other, but it is a small place. But being a small place, when you write about it, everybody knows who you're talking about, or not who you're talking about because they're not real people, what you're talking about and where you're talking about. So it's rich pickings, really.
Right, exactly, yeah. And I imagine you have to be a little bit careful to disguise any colorful characters that might be in your own life.
Well, there is that. But, I mean, to be honest, one of the characters, the ex-Lord Provost, is based on someone who's long dead and everybody knows, who caused a bit of havoc when he was on the council in Dundee. In fact, he ended up in prison because of it all, by giving contracts to his own business to knock down bits of Dundee and then rebuild them.
Mm. Wow.
Everybody knows about that, so I can say it in the ether, it's not a problem. But one of the characters is based on him because he was a complete nightmare. He just did whatever he wanted. He was on the council and did exactly what he wanted.
Yeah. Well, that's a fantastic source of inspiration, I imagine, all the trouble he got into.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, he completely wrecked the heart of Dundee, and all the really old bits of Dundee were just demolished.
Oh.
He rebuilt them with some monstrosities, really.
Oh, that's such a shame.
Dundee is up and coming. It's being rebuilt. It was a city of great poverty. It was described at one point as a sinkhole of atrocity. That was a couple of hundred years ago, I might add.
Oh, dear.
By a judge. But it's up and coming. It's vibrant. It's getting a brand new museum, the Victoria and Albert Museum, the first one outside London. They're regenerating the riverfront. So it's a real up and coming place.
Okay. Oh, that's lovely. And so what changes have gone on in Shona's life over the course of the 5 books?
Well, she's got over her dislike of men for a start.
Yeah.
And she's actually having a romance with the Procurator Fiscal. And it's getting quite serious. But people keep saying, when are they going to get married? And I'm like, well, they haven't actually told me yet. So when the Procurator Fiscal tells me he's going to propose, that's Douglas Lawson, then I'll let you know. You readers will be the first to know.
Exactly.
Because it's a very slow burning romance, and a lot of what happens over dead bodies. Because she's always chasing serial killers and doesn't get much time off. And people always say, well, you have to explain what the Procurator Fiscal is. You have no such thing in any other city, in any other country in the world.
Yes.
And basically, nothing can go ahead or go to the Crown Prosecution Service or anything without the Procurator Fiscal say so. Oh. So he's very powerful and important in law in Scotland. So you can't write a book without him. And I thought, oh, well, I might as well just include him.
Yes.
The thing is, she's got a bit softer, and her team have gelled together a bit. So she's got an easier ride, really.
Oh, that's great. Oh, that's fantastic. And so let's switch gears then and talk about your young adult book. And so the first question I want to ask is, why the switch to writing a young adult mystery?
Well, I was very fortunate in that a publisher, the first 5 books I published under my own imprint. So I set up a publishing company called Scott and Lawson. And the books were doing really well. And a publisher approached me and said, it was Books to Treasure, who are a fabulous up-and-coming young adult and children's publisher. And they said, look, we would love to publish your adult books. However, we don't publish adult books, so we can't go down that route. Have you got an idea for a young adult book, a series of mystery books? And I said, well, it just so happens I do. And they said, well, could you pitch it to us and pitch the series? So I had a 12-hour journey in a car on my own, which gives you 12 hours to think about things. So I firmed up the ideas I had and firmed up the ideas for the first book. And the Fergus and Flora mysteries were born. Now, Flora is Flora MacDonald. Now, for your listeners who don't know who Flora MacDonald is, because there may be a lot of people out there that don't, the original Flora MacDonald, it's rescued Bonnie Prince Charlie in the days of the Highland clearances. He was the Scottish Prince, Bonnie Prince Charlie. She rescued him and rowed him over the sea to Skye. It sounds very grand. We're not talking the Atlantic here. We're talking, there's a bridge now, so that'll show you how big it is over the sea to Skye. But then, and even up until a few years ago, there was no bridge, and the only way to get across was by boat. And she rescued him and rowed him over the sea to Skye. So she was a very feisty Scottish heroine. And this is a true story. That's not folklore. Mm-hmm. She really did rescue him. So Flora MacDonald is a direct descendant of the original Flora MacDonald. Wow. So she's like the original Flora MacDonald in that she doesn't care what scrape she gets into. She doesn't care who does what, as long as things get done. So she's not frightened to stick up for the underdog. And her best friend is Fergus Bernstein, and they work together. And in the very first book, well, I've told you how it came about. I'm now going on to tell you more. So I'm answering more than you asked me.
That's fantastic. I'm thrilled about that. So tell us about the first book.
Yeah, I should have said the publisher was thrilled with it all, and we signed a contract for a 3-book series in 4 days.
Wow.
It's unusual in the publishing world.
Yeah.
So quite good, really.
Yeah.
So the book, In the Dagger's Curse, which is the first book in the series, there's a dagger on loan to the the McManus Galleries in Dundee. That's the museum, the biggest museum in Dundee. And this dagger is cursed. It has an Egyptian curse set on it. So the first chapter of the book is about this curse being laid on the dagger, and it protects whoever owns it. But some lowlife steals it from the museum, and so it then lays a curse on Dundee, or so it goes. So Dundee has a curse laid on it. And in the meantime, Fergus's dad, who is a huge international archaeologist and who discovered the dagger in Egypt originally, and it's him who set up the display, he gets arrested and for the theft, and they're saying he stole it. So they're there trying to find the dagger, break the curse, and break his father out of jail.
Wow, that's fantastic. And they're sort of early teens or mid-teens?
They are. They're 14 years old.
Okay.
And cause utter havoc running around Dundee, doing things they shouldn't be doing. They get locked up in castles. They escape from castles. They get locked up in castles again. They're following codes, secret codes that are being left. It's all just a big adventure and thrill, really.
Oh, nice. And so what's it like for you writing for that age group compared to writing for grown-ups?
It's so much fun, really. To be honest, you need to remember that there are some words that age group won't understand. Mm-hmm. However, they also want to be pushed. They don't want simple language. So you need to use language that they'll understand without treating them like babies. Mm-hmm. So that's important.
Yeah.
that you actually speak to them more as adults, but not adults with a word range. And the other thing is it's difficult because you've got to think about slang. But slang, in some ways, you don't want to be using up-to-date slang because it goes out of date so fast. I mean, the teenagers change slang every 5 minutes. What you're using today could be gone tomorrow. So you have no clue. So you have to try and give a flavour of teenage slang without dating it.
Yeah.
And you also need to give a flavour of what they would be doing. So they might be dressed in Skechers shoes. However, in a year's time, they won't be using Skechers shoes. So that dates it. So it's really tricky, to get it all fixed with and give a flavour of teenage life without using things that would date it.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And I imagine technology works in the same way in that it can date itself quite quickly.
Absolutely. So, I mean, to be honest, we're using iPhones and things because I don't think iPhones are going to go away in any near future. But if you use it, so that's fine. As long as you're not saying iPhones are a bunch of old crock and you need to get rid of the whole blessed lot of them. Nobody cares, You can use that. But, I mean, you have to use a certain amount of technology. You can say mobile phone. But, hey, we might be talking through a microchip in 20 years, but what can you do about that? It's what we're using.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, they're running around as well using beach buggy type things. They're not meant to be using because they're too young, but they're using them on the roads. But you just make it all up as you go along, really.
That's right. Yes. Yeah. And then you said you signed a 3-book series. And do you have in mind what the next 2 books are about, or is it too early? You do?
No, the next one should be out soon. It's called The Haunted Broch. Now, again, I'm sure people that don't live in Scotland, or even people that live in Scotland, will have no clue what a broch is. A broch is an old dwelling, and the Scots used it during the Roman times. So you often found them near Roman roads. And they were big dwellings, they were big houses, so it was only people with a lot of money that could afford them. Hence the reason they were near Roman roads, because people that did trade would be able to afford them. And there are a lot of these brochs all over Scotland. Now, this particular one that it's based in is Stirling's Lost Broch. And what happened was there was a lady, and this is a true story, a lady called Christian McLagan. Now, Christian McLagan was in the Victorian era, and she found the broch. But because she wasn't a fellow, a man, she couldn't join, she couldn't be a fellow of the Antiquarian and Archaeology Society. So they went, no, you couldn't have found it, you're a woman. So it disappeared off the history. They've recently found it again.
Wow.
And they're in the process of digging it out. So this is set during the dig. And I've been to visit the dig and it's all great. So,
fantastic.
Yeah, but the broch is haunted. Christian McLagan was not going to let this lie.
And then, so Fergus and Flora then take off from there, solving the mystery of the ghost that's haunting it?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. It's all tied in with that. And of course, there's more to it than that, know. And they're just still running around causing mayhem.
Right.
They're not staying in one place in this little archaeological dig. They're off doing their own thing and causing havoc.
Nice. Oh, that's great. And you said it's out soon?
Yes, it should be out soon. I haven't quite got a date yet. That was my own fault. I had a relative who was ill, so because of that, it got delayed slightly.
Yeah. Oh, good. Okay. Well, I'll put links to the first book for sure in the show notes.
Yeah.
And people can carry on. And then are you working on the third one?
And not quite yet, but I will be. And I haven't got a title for it yet, so I can't quite tell you, but it'll be back in Dundee.
Oh, good. Okay. And how do you spell Broch?
B-R-O-C-H.
Okay. Very good. And you had a really cool blog post on your site about when you launched The Dagger's Curse. And that was your first young adult launch and you wanted it to be special. So why don't you tell our listeners about that?
Well, it was absolutely so much fun. And when the cover came out, there was a dagger on the front. Now it's based on an ancient Egyptian dagger that's in the British Museum in London. So it really is. And one of my friends runs a theatrical armory, and he has weapons and things in there. And he sent me a message and he said, "Oh, it just so happens that I happen to have that dagger, the real thing, in my armory." So he said, "Would you like it for the launch?" I said, "Oh, I absolutely would. That sounds like a great idea." He said, "The only problem is it's live. Now, being live, a weapon is live means it's capable of being used for real. So it's fully sharpened, this dagger. It wasn't a bit of plastic. Yeah, it was the real thing." So I was like, okay, yeah. He said, "We'll get permission from the police. We'll get permission from Waterstones." So Waterstones and the police, to my utter amazement, both said, "Yeah, that's a really good idea, as long as my friend came with a stab vest on and kept a very close eye on things." And it was only him that was allowed to touch it. So on the day, he turned up with a chest, which was a silver case, which was locked and had my name on the front. And I was reading out the first chapter about the haunted broch, the curse being laid. And I read out a little poem that I'd written about what was recited when it was laid. And then I said, if anybody touched a dagger, the curse would be released. And as I said that, he opened the case. It was polished, completely polished, this knife, lying on a pink cushion with my book next to it, which has got pink in the cover. And when he opened the case, he had lights in it, in the top of the case. When it opened, the light shone on the fully sharpened dagger, and a pink light flew out from the case. Wow. As I said the words, the curse was released. And the whole of Waterstone's bookshop gasped. There was about 100 people there, including me. I was like, "Oh my giddy aunt." It was so much fun.
Wow. Oh, great theatrics.
It was superb. He did it brilliantly. He runs this theatrical armory, and his name's Stuart, and he's amazing.
And so I wanted to ask, theatrical armory, so does that mean that it's a place where people can borrow munitions and arms if they're going to be in plays or the movies or whatever? Okay.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely, yes.
Oh, perfect connection to have for your book.
Yeah, his name's Stuart Archibald, and he runs it in Brechin, and he's absolutely amazing chap.
Oh, that's fantastic. And so you're going to be working on the third Ferguson Flora mystery, and then do you have plans for another D.I. Shona mystery?
Oh, D.I. Shona McKenzie, Killer's Crypt, the 6th book in the D.I. Shona McKenzie mysteries, will be released on the 14th of August.
Oh, very good.
Yes.
That's great.
I have a book launch at Waterstones Bookshop in Dundee.
Oh, nice. So you've got a nice connection then with Waterstones.
Absolutely. I have to say, Waterstones in Dundee have been amazing. Absolutely outstanding. From the first book to the last, they are amazing. They've supported me and my books 100%. Oh,
that's so lovely. It's great to hear.
Yeah.
So we're just about out of time. I'm going to ask you 2 more questions. One is about the book festival that you organize, the Books in the Castle. Tell us about that.
Well, Crime at the Castle, I approached Glamis Castle. Now, very quickly, for anybody who doesn't know what it is, it's the most haunted castle in Scotland. Oh. And the second and really good thing about it is it's the childhood home of Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother. So Princess Margaret was born there. And the Queen holidayed there as a child. Queen Elizabeth, our current Queen, holidayed there as a child because it was her family home. So it was like going to your auntie and uncle's for your holidays. That's where she went. And Glamis Castle, again, have been amazing. It's going to be huge. We haven't said who's going to be speaking there yet, so I can't tell you, unfortunately.
Oh, okay.
But it's the creme de la creme of the Scottish crime writing world.
Oh, nice.
The tickets will go on sale at the beginning of August, and it's going to be amazing. It's going to be outstanding.
And when will it be held?
26th of February. No, sorry. Yeah, the 24th of February. Sorry, 2016.
2018.
16, 18. I'm going backwards.
Yeah, that's right.
So book your time capsule. Book tickets. 2018.
Well, I'll put a link in the show notes for sure to the festival.
Yeah. It's on the Glamis Castle website, so people can see. I mean, again, Glamis Castle have been superb. I approached them and they just ran with it and went, "Yeah, what a fabulous idea."
Oh, fantastic! And is that close to Dundee, where you are?
Yeah, it's very close. It's about 20 minutes away.
Oh, fabulous!
In Glamis itself, which is a small village, really.
Okay.
So it's going to be amazing because it's going to be intimate and unique.
Oh, yes. Oh, lovely. Well, if any of our listeners are in Scotland, they'll be sure to check that out. Like I said, I'll put a link in the show notes.
Well, I know there are people coming from Canada for it.
Oh, goodness.
I know for a fact there are people coming from Canada to attend.
Excellent. Oh, that's great.
And America.
Yeah, I'm sure from all over.
Yeah.
Yeah, sounds fabulous. All right. Well, thank you so much, Wendy. This has been amazing. Why don't you let our listeners know where they can find out more about you and your books?
Well, if you go to wendyhjones.com, you'll find out all about me. If you go to Amazon, my books are on Amazon. You can get them in any bookstore in the world if you just go in and order it. So you can get them anywhere, really. You can get them in CLC bookshops in Britain, and you can get them on Kobo, Nook, anywhere you can buy books.
Excellent. Oh, that's fabulous. Well, thank you so much again, Wendy. I really appreciate having you here.
It's been amazing. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Oh, you're so welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye.